A very good morning, children. Welcome back to the English online class. Children, I hope that you all are staying safe at your home. And hopefully you all have given your exam with full of enthusiasm. Now, back again with our online classes. Let us begin with the new lesson from your English book, New Voices, lesson number 8. And the name of the lesson is The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle, which is written by Arthur Conan Doyle. So, before moving ahead towards the lesson, let us first know about the main characters of this lesson. The first one is Sherlock Holmes. He is a detective who solved the case of the Blue Carbuncle. The second one is Watson. He is the narrator, the man who helped Sherlock Holmes solve the case. He thought he wasn't as intelligent as Sherlock. The third one is Countess of Morcar. She is the lady from whom the Blue Carbuncle was stolen. She offered recompense for her Blue Carbuncle, that is €100. She accused John Horner of stealing the Blue Carbuncle. The fourth one is Commissioner Peterson. He is a police officer, the one who tried to help Henry Baker but instead scared him. He helped Sherlock by collecting the goose and the hat and giving it to Sherlock to solve the case. The fifth one is Henry Baker. He is a scared and left goose and hat behind. He told Sherlock he bought the goose in Alpha Inn and took a new goose with him. The sixth one is Catherine Cusack. She is the maid of Countess. She told James Ryder about the Blue Carbuncle and helped Ryder steal the Blue Carbuncle. The seventh one is John Horner. He is accused of something he did not do. He is a plumber and is now in jail, worked in Hotel Cosmopolitan. The eighth one is James Ryder. He is intendant of the Cosmopolitan Hotel and robbed the Blue Carbuncle. He made a goose eat it and someone took the Blue Carbuncle and he lost it. In charge of robbery, and Sherlock Holmes gave him another chance. The ninth one is Brackenridge. He sold goose and didn't have any idea of anything. The last one is the 10th one, Alpha Inn landlord. She is the owner of the bar that was named as Alpha Inn. So children, these were the main characters of this lesson. Now, let me give you the short introduction of this lesson. Peterson, a commissioner, brings to Holmes a hat that was left by a man, along with a Christmas goose, who ran when Peterson rushed over to try to save him from a fight. Holmes at first tries to deduce for whom the goose was intended, but Peterson returns with the discovery in the goose crop of a famous jewel, the Blue Carbuncle, owned by the Countess of Morcar, which was recently reported as stolen. John Horner, who is a plumber who was at the Hotel Cosmopolitan, the hotel where the Countess was staying at that time when the theft occurred, was accused of the crime, but Holmes suspects someone else. Holmes traces the path of the goose back to his source, beginning with the Alpha Inn, where it was sold. He then goes to Mr. Brackenridge, a salesman, from whom he learns the goose came from Mrs. Oxshott. Visiting Mrs. Oxshott, Holmes comes across James Ryder, the head attendant at the Hotel Cosmopolitan, who stole the carbuncle after hearing of it from Catherine Cusack, the Countess' maid. After the theft, Ryder had struggled for an idea to conceal the carbuncle, lest it were found in his person. But his idea of stuffing it down a goose crop backfired when he lost track of the goose. Holmes lets the man go. So children, this was the short introduction of the lesson. Now let us move towards the lesson explanation. The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. It is a setting during the Christmas period and commences with Dr. Watson visiting his old friend Holmes at 221 B. Baker Street. Watson finds Holmes still wearing his dressing gown and engrossed in the examination of a battered hat. The hat, along with a fresh goose, had been brought to Holmes by a commissioner called Peterson. Peterson, being an acquaintance of both Holmes and Watson, Peterson had observed a street scuffle in the early hours of Christmas Day, when four men had set upon another. Peterson had gone to the assistance of the individual and the attackers had fled. The man who Peterson had shouted to help had also left the scene. Peterson in uniform would have looked like a peeler, with a window broken. The man must have thought he was in trouble. The man, though, had left behind a hat and goose, and Peterson, being an honest man, had come to home in the hope that both could be returned to their rightful owner. Holmes had returned the goose to the Peterson for the commissioner's wife to cook. As the goose was starting to spoil and the detective was now building up a picture of the hat's owner, a card addressed to Mrs. Henry Baker had been attached to the bird, and the fact that the initials HB were imprinted on the brim of the hat suggested that the hat belonged to Mr. Henry Baker. Holmes deduces that Henry Baker is an intelligent man. Based on the size of the hat, it is less well off than he had once been. Based on the outdated style of the hat, and is a man of self-respect. based on the attempts to hide the condition of the hat. Watson scoffs at some of these deductions and is hardly convinced at all. It is at this point that Peterson returns to Baker Street. During the preparation of the bird for cooking, Mrs. Peterson had discovered a blue diamond in the throat of the goose. The blue diamond in the blue carbuncle, a precious stone that is being reported as being stolen from the hotel room of the Countess of Morcar. The theft had reportedly occurred at the Hotel Cosmopolitan, and whistle the police had a suspect, John Horner, in custody. There had been no sign of the blue carbuncle. John Horner had been primarily arrested as though he was working at the hotel as a plumber. He had a previous criminal record, and suspicion had been pointed his way by another hotel employee, James Ryder. The problem of a lost goose had now turned into a serious crime for Holmes to solve. Holmes places an advert in the evening papers asking Henry Baker to come to Baker Street to retrieve his lost belongings. The investigation continues. Later in the evening, Watson returns to Baker Street to see whether the adverts work, and of course, eventually Henry Baker does make an appearance. It soon becomes obvious that the deductions made about the hat's owner were correct, but it's also obvious that Henry Baker knows nothing about the blue carbuncle. Henry Baker is more upset about the loss of the bird than the contents. Although Holmes gave Henry Baker a fresh bird to compensate, if Henry Baker knows nothing about the blue carbuncle, how did the stone end up in the goose? Holmes and Watson undertake some legwork to trace behind the movements of the goose. The first point of call is a local inn where Henry Baker had taken part in a Christmas club to buy the goose. The pair then discover that the innkeeper had brought the goose from a wholesaler named Breckenridge in Covent Garden. Geese supplied to Breckenridge had been supplied by a Mrs. Oxshott of Brixton. Holmes and Watson, though, thought are not only once tracing the movements of the mysterious goose, and Breckenridge is irritated that Holmes is hassling him for information after someone else had done likewise. At that moment, the man who had previously annoyed Breckenridge returns seeking more information. Holmes convinces the man that he has all the answers. The man turns out to be James Ryder. The man newspapers had named as an employee of the Hotel Cosmopolitan. Holmes, Watson, and Ryder return to Baker Street, and Holmes reveals that the blue carbuncle has been recovered. Ryder then throws himself on Holmes' mercy. Ryder had discovered the whereabouts of the blue carbuncle from Catherine Cusack, the Countess of Morcar maid. Ryder had stolen the stone and the and had shouted to cover his tracks by framing honor. Ryder then had shouted to hide the gem and had gone to Mrs. Oxshot's farm. Mrs. Oxshot, being sister to Ryder, his sister had promised him a goose for Christmas, and so Ryder had got the goose to swallow the blue diamond. That is the blue carbuncle. That is the gem, blue diamond. When Ryder took his bird home, though, he realized that he had picked the wrong bird and had then desperately tried to find the bird which he had fed the blue carbuncle to. Ryder is by that time on his knees in front of Holmes, begging for mercy. Previously, he had never been in trouble with the police and now had committed a crime that he would not benefit from. Holmes allows Ryder to leave, and indeed, Ryder flees for the continent. Holmes explains to Watson that he is not there to do the police work for them, and that he believes that Ryder has been scared straight. Without the testimony of Ryder, the case against Horner collapses and the plumber is freed. So children, this was the lesson explanation. I hope that you all have understood it. Hopefully, in our next online class, we will begin with the same summary of the lesson and also the character sketch of the main characters of this lesson. Thank you.